right, welcome into Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today, Tuesday, March 22nd. You know you want that play of the day coming up, and we start the Sweet 16 today. Two of those games coming up in Big Game Breakdown. Before we get to bad beats and wrong sides, Teddy, we got some coaching news to talk about. Pitt gets beat on Friday, and they're going to need a new coach because Dixon caught a lot of people by surprise. He takes the TCU job yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to say goodbye to Trent Johnson, and boy, we'll miss Trent Johnson. 8-64 in the Big 12 at TCU in his 4 years on the job. I mean, Johnson was an incredible head coach. He literally had one good year at Nevada in 2004, and he parlayed that into three good jobs afterward. You know, Stanford, LSU, and TCU. He did nothing in any of those programs. He made me money as a fade over the years. Trent Johnson, we will miss you. But we got to talk about Jamie Dixon. I mean, when a coach leaves Pitt for TCU, yes, he's a TCU grad, and sure, there's some appeal to that. And, you know, he did lead the old Southwest Conference in assists as a senior. But, I mean, Paulie, TCU's kind of a hopeless program. They really are. Their last tourney win came in 1987. They're recruiting against bigger boys or bigger schools. They're recruiting against the big boys, the big schools. That I think they're going to have a hard time. It's not a program primed for an immediate turnaround. But more than anything, Paul, this move to me speaks volumes about Pitt. Well, I saw the writing. I'm sorry. So go on. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, why would he do this? Why would he leave to go to this program after he made the tournament almost every year at Pitt?
Well, when Pitt moved from the Big East to the ACC, you know, it didn't attract a whole lot of headlines, but it's made a huge difference in the Panthers' ability to recruit, particularly out of New York. There was a real pipeline from New York City out to the Pitt program, and that's what kept Pitt competitive for the last 10 years since Ben Howland left. And since the Panthers switched from the Big East to the ACC, all of a sudden that pipeline got shut down. Only one contributing New York area recruit for Jamie Dixon's team this last year. When that pipeline gets shut down and you see the writing on the wall, you say, this program's headed in the wrong direction. What do? You jump ship. That's what Jamie Dixon did. This, to me, means more about Pitt and Pitt's decline than it says anything about TCU.
We had another move. Brad Underwood, they lose over the weekend. He takes the job at Oklahoma State. T. Boone Pickens with all that money, and he makes the jump now from the little guy. He'll be a big player now with Oklahoma State, and UNLV misses out again. They were the first school to fire their coach. They still haven't hired anybody. They're going to get Mick Cronin coming in. Cincinnati gave them permission to interview him. I think that's a horrible fit. But first of all, Teddy, what'd you think of Underwood taking the job?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, one decent run from any mid-major. And what happens? Immediate loss of their head coach, or they got to re-sign him for megabucks. I mean, how many different coaches have we seen? You know, Enfield has one good run with Florida Gulf Coast. What does he parlay it? He parlayed it into the USC job, et cetera, et cetera. So Stephen F. Austin gets a win. Okay, great. They almost get another one. Notre Dame with a put back at the buzzer or with a second left or whatever. But, you know, the players, you guys are gone. The school, you get to stay where you are. The coach is the guy who makes all the money off of this. And I'm not surprised that you got to strike while the iron's hot if you're trying to move up in the coaching ranks. But what do you think about the Rebels? What do you think about Cronin? I think Cronin's a good coach. He's done a lot at Cincy with minimal talent. Their teams are tough. He just hasn't been able to recruit a lot of scorers there.
No, I think it's a bad fit because here they want to push the ball and want high flying and a lot of scoring. Certainly you watch Cincinnati play. While he's made the tournament, they've had problems cracking the games in the 60s, getting in the 60s, so I don't think that's exactly an ideal fit. But they screwed it up. They're running out of people to talk to and running out of big-time candidates, at least guys that can win the press conference and make a run in the tournament.
UNLV screwing up. What a surprise.
Yeah, no kidding. Jesus. Yeah. Time for bad beats and wrong sides. Put this graphic up. The That Just Happened graph. The Spurs, with 11 minutes and 20 seconds in the second quarter, they led Charlotte 30-7. Final score, 91-88. Charlotte, the Spurs blew it. And, Teddy, the Hornets were led by Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, Lin came off the bench. He personally outscored San Antonio's bench 29-18. Now remember, the Spurs entered the game third in the NBA in bench scoring, nearly 40 points per game. What makes this historic? Well, it's the single biggest blown lead in the entire Tim Duncan era. Yeah, that's worth talking about. But you know what else is worth talking about? There's nothing better, Paulie, than playing the under as a play of the day. And I don't know about you, I'm not much of a first quarter watcher when it comes to the NBA. I like to turn games on the beginning of the second. You get a feel for how things are flowing into halftime if you want to make a halftime bet. So I flip on the Spurs-Charlotte game, early second quarter, and there's nothing better. We got the under in that game. Charlotte with a 7 on the scoreboard. That always feels good. Obviously an uphill battle for over-bettors after that dismal start for the Hornets, but heck of a comeback against a San Antonio team that, you know, maybe they beat Golden State and got off to a big lead here and got a little bit flat.
Ton of bad bets and wrong sides. Let's start in college hoops. Monmouth, favored, lost by 16. That was a GW team that had a lot of seniors, and their coach was even talking trash before the game. In South Carolina, they lost by 17 at home to Georgia Tech. They were favored. Two wrong sides there.
Yeah, two home teams in the NIT, two number one seeds in the NIC go bye-bye. But let's talk about the NBA. There was a ton of bad or wrong money in the NBA last night. Look, they bet Philly, Indiana over. You know, opened 207.5, got bet as high as 211. That game stayed 45 points under. And they bet Denver, you know, plus 12 down to plus 11.5. The Nuggets were down 15 after one. They lost by 33. They bet the Hawks. You know, Atlanta got bet up from 6.5 to 7.5. They never had the lead in the second half of that game. They lost by 15 at home to the suddenly surging Wizards, with John Wall and Bradley Beal combining for 52 points. The Wizards have now won 6 straight and playing some good basketball. Atlanta, wrong side. Warriors, Golden State was bet up from minus 11 to minus 12.5. Knee-jerk move. Oh, Warriors off a loss. Got to bet Golden State. They struggled to win the game at all at Minnesota. Paul, there are worse basic strategies than betting against the money in the NBA. And the last night, multiple examples of money and quote-unquote sharp money being dead wrong and leading to wrong side losers in NBA action.
You got that right. Big game breakdown coming up next. We'll start in the association and get to the Sweet 16 on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today. All right, time for big game breakdown. To the association, the Grizzlies and the Lakers. Why are we talking about the Grizzlies and the Lakers, Teddy?
Yeah. Who cares about this game?
Yes.
NBA total bettors care about this game. That's who. And, of course, it's not a great NBA board for Tuesday, but this game stands out like a sore thumb, Paul. Kobe has played back-to-back nights only once in the last 2 months.
Yes.
He's got his final game ever at Phoenix on Wednesday. So even if he can play versus Memphis tonight, will he?
Look at this graphic. This is like Ryan Gosling's character in The Big Short. Nobody's paying attention. We're paying attention. The graphic. The Lakers without Kobe since December 19th. Under 13-0. You heard me. 13 straight unders. Versus the market, they've gone under by a total of 227.5 points, 17.5 per game. It's astonishing. The concept here is, again, when Kobe plays, they want to put on a show. They need to keep him happy. He wants to get his shots. Remember that game against the Cavs? It was like an all-star game. No one was playing defense. When he sits, it's more of it's sharing the ball, pass it, get everyone involved, and Scott's trying to develop the younger guys and get more minutes and get some trust and confidence for them. But again, Teddy, just astonishing numbers that no one's talking about.
Well, yeah. I mean, the key is that there's not any database you're going to look and say, oh, what's the Lakers over-under when Kobe sits? And what's the Lakers over total when he plays? You don't have that information that's readily available. So what people do is they look at season-long numbers. You have very misleading stats for LA when Kobe sits because you don't have numbers just for those games. You have misleading pace charts for the Lakers when Kobe sits because you don't have specific numbers for those games. And nobody, you talked about Ryan Gosling, good reference, except us, is paying any attention. You can't find angles like this on SportsCenter, Paul. You can't find angles like this even in most databases without knowing exactly what to look for. That's what we're here for. Now, we do not know for sure that Kobe Bryant is going to sit tonight. We do not have an opening line for this game yet. We have a projected total sitting in the 201 range. We'll get back to that come play of the daytime. But as it looks now, chances look likely for Kobe to sit. And this might be one where you want to get involved with a bet on the come. As you mentioned, 17.5 points per game. These games have flown under the total when Kobe has been sitting. This has been going on for the last 3 months, and nobody's paying any attention.
And again, most of these have been rocking chair games where you don't have to sweat it because the game has no chance of going over. To the NIT, St. Mary's and Valpo. Valpo 4.5, 131 the total. And St. Mary's gets to see a little bit of America here as they get to travel. They get to see the Rocky Mountains. They get to check out the Mississippi River. Remember, in non-conference play, they didn't leave the state of California. And in the West Coast Conference, the longest trip was 700 miles. Here, they're going to Chicago. That's 1,800 miles. But they can get some lessons here as they get Alec Peters from the Crusaders. They're going to have their hands full, Teddy.
Yeah, I just like looking up the aerial pictures of the Rocky Mountains
Yes, right.
and the Mississippi River. That's kind of fun with St. Mary's. You don't get those aerial pictures on many sports shows. We like to do it here on Sports B.I.T. But of course, this is by far the longest trip that the Gales have had this season. That is, of course, a team with a couple of freshmen from Australia getting their first chance to visit America. But no easy lessons to be learned against Valpo and the Crusaders. Alex Peters has been a monster. 54 points, 16 rebounds in the first two tournament games. He's tough on the inside in the NIT, but he's also 5 for 11 from three-point range. He can stretch it. Remember, Valpo got screwed by the double bye in the Horizon Conference at the Joe Louis Arena. The sightlines were awful. The teams that had been able to play on that court previously had a huge edge. They were ice cold in the first half. They got bounced early in their first game in that Horizon League tournament, even though it was the semifinal. The double bye actually hurt them. But moving forward, and obviously here in the NIT, Valpo, they're, in my mind, certainly one of the teams to beat in this tournament.
We did a deep dive on this last week with the NIT. Now, what's the motivation here, Teddy? Because, like we talked about, in that first game, it wasn't there. It's like St. Mary's didn't want to be there, and they almost lost to New Mexico State, who's an average team. But now you can taste and get a feel. You're close to New York City now in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, exactly. What happens at the very beginning, that first round of the NIT, is you can find the disappointed teams and bet against them. You'll do well. I thought New Mexico State was going to be a little bit more disappointed. Well, New Mexico State was able to control pace in that game against St. Mary's in the opener. I don't think that the Gales were necessarily lethargic. They just weren't. They didn't have a good end game in that contest, and they couldn't really solve the Aggies' defense. But once you get past that very first game, motivation is no longer an issue in the NIT. It really isn't. And as we saw last night, motivated road teams are capable of taking care of business. That being said, Valpo's no easy out, I'll tell you that. Even though St. Mary's has probably been the more high profile of the two teams this season.
Up next, on to the Sweet 16. That's coming up on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today. All right, deep dive into the Sweet 16. Big game breakdown continues. Welcome back on Sports B.I.T. We'll do 2 Sweet 16 games between now and Friday. Let's start with Maryland and Kansas. Kansas 6.5, 145 the total. Teddy, will Trimble continue to be MIA for Maryland?
Well, I got to make fun of you first. We got to do more than 2 Sweet 16 games between now and Friday. We got to do 2 every day between now and Friday. Otherwise, we're going to break these 2 games down on each of the next 4 shows, and I think our viewers will get bored of that, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, I mean, we can break down Maryland, Kansas 15 different ways, but there's only so much we can do. Melo Trimble, such an interesting question to ask because, this is a guy who took a ton of criticism this season. He's been criticized as a leader. He's been criticized as a floor leader. He's been criticized when Maryland didn't play good basketball down the stretch. He's been criticized for being too quiet. There's 100 things that Melo Trimble's been criticized for this season, and some of it's warranted. Certainly, you think about Maryland in the tournament so far. Trimble, 1 of 10 from three-point range. 5 assists versus 5 turnovers. And he got disqualified. He got knocked out of the game against South Dakota State after getting foul number 4 and foul number 5 on back-to-back possessions late in the game. including fouling a three-point shooter, stuff you really, really can't do. Now, Trimble, 46 for 143 over his last 12 games, so he's hitting in the 35% range, a little bit less. 16 of 60 from three-point range during that span, so, just above 25% in that regard. The one thing he has done well, he's knocked down free throws, 22 of 23 from the charity stripe in 2 tournament wins, but I've got my questions about Melo Trimble right now. That being said, Maryland was able to beat Hawaii despite shooting 1 of 18 from three-point range. They were able to win that game, cover the number. And when you do that, despite that type of a three-point shooting night, you're clearly doing something right. And even though Trimble's been struggling, the Terps, they've picked it up. They're playing pretty good ball right now, better than I thought they would do. I did not think they would be a Sweet 16 team.
Yep. So they had to struggle against the Jackrabbits, and then they beat Hawaii. Now they're going up against a freight train. Kansas does it as a team. If you show this graphic, 4 players over 400 points, 3 over 150 rebounds, 3 have over 90 assists, 4 players with more than 20 block shots, and 4 with over 20 steals, Teddy, and it was very impressive. They had a huge lead over Connecticut.
Yeah, they sure. I mean, they took care of it. The UConn game was over by halftime. But it's worth noting, look at those different categories: points, rebounds, assists, block shots, steals. A different player leads the team in each of those 5 categories. I'm not sure that there's any team in college basketball that has shown their sights are better set on winning a championship ahead of any individual goals.
Another Sweet 16 game. Again, the schedule's awesome on Thursday. Miami and Villanova. Villanova 4, 140.5. The Villanova defense has been a wall in the tournament so far. 17 steals, 9 block shots. Up 34 points against Iowa. It was raining threes, and they get to exercise the demons because they need to make a deep tournament run. Well documented. They haven't made it to the second weekend since 2009. But Larinaga and Rodriguez, in big games and in tough adversity, they find a way, and they did a great job against that tough Wichita defense, Teddy.
Well, that's the whole key, is that, you look at Villanova's defense, and Villanova's defense has been the story of their first 2 tournament wins. But when you look at what Miami did against Wichita, and look, Wichita got absolutely screwed when it came to the schedule. It's like, all right, yeah, we'll play you Tuesday, we'll play you Thursday, and then we'll play you early.
Yeah.
Or was it Tuesday? I don't even remember anymore. Was it Tuesday, Thursday?
Tuesday night, Thursday night,
Yeah.
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then Saturday morning they were gassed. They really were. Miami went on a big early run. Wichita came back and actually, I forget if they tied or took the lead in the second half, but they didn't have enough to sustain it. But the key, the whole point of all of that, Paul, is that you think about that game against Wichita State. It prepared them for facing guards that bring pressure, because we know what the Shockers do, or did in the Van Vliet Baker era. A ton of ball pressure. Miami's guards, they don't get the love that some of the other backcourts do, but Angel Rodriguez, this guy has been a monster under pressure, and Larinaga's Hurricanes have been able to survive teams like Villanova, teams that put a lot of pressure on their guards on the defensive end.
How good is this schedule Thursday? It's all chalk, but I love it. These are great matchups.
What about Friday? It's not like Friday's matchup. The game are lousy and problematic. It's Sweet 16, buddy. Every game is great, and it's surely worth noting we're done seeing college basketball games at the same time.
Yeah, you're right.
This is the end of it. Every game gets their own little window, and no longer, if you only have, I don't know, who watches games on one TV anymore.
Well, yeah, true. But now you can go back to, you got to remember next year what channel's True TV. Go back to that. Now,
on DirecTV, it's right in between. It's right in between TBS and TNT. That's the only reason I know it.
Yep. All right. We are red hot. This is a lot of fun. Teddy mentioned the easy winner last night with the we put on the TV and you saw his 8 points in the early in the second quarter for the Hornets. An 8-2 run with the play of the day. Let's keep it going. Take it away, Teddy.
Well, and it's important to note. This show is not about play of the day. It really isn't. We're not about hyping records. We're not about selling plays. There's none of that nonsense here on Sports B.I.T. What we do want to do is show how little edges over time will produce a profit. And this Lakers underrun, maybe isn't such a little edge. It's a big edge right now. As we mentioned at the top of the show, 13-0 to the under. The last 13 times Kobe has sat, and those games have cashed, gone under the total by more than 17 points per game. Now, we are recording this very early. We do not have an official total on this game. The projected number, what I'm expecting to see, is in the range of 201. But honestly, this is worth betting the under all the way down to 198 or 197 if we see a number that comes a little bit lower than I expect. It's also worth noting Memphis, points per 100 possessions. Without Mike Conley, well, let's see. The full season NBA worst points per possession is the 76ers at 96.1. Memphis, without Conley since he got hurt, they're at 98.9. That would rate number 29 in the NBA for the full season. So it's not like the Grizzlies are running and gunning either. Without Conley and Gasol to open things up. Look at this picture. Zach Randolph, so much easier for opposing defenses to key on. Lakers aren't going to push it. Grizzlies aren't going to push it. Expect a low-scoring game. Let's take the Lakers and the Grizzlies under the total. That's the play of the day for Tuesday.
All right, let's keep it going. A lot of fun. Tell your friends. 2 more Sweet 16 games coming up tomorrow on Sports B.I.T. Betting Insight today.